Roadmaps, the grand plan of publishers that is often sold to us as being more content, more often, and almost always at no extra cost. It might sound great, but they are being executed to varying levels of success, with DICE's Battlefield 5 in many ways being a poster child for the pitfalls of the model, to the point where many people have found themselves preferring the archaic DLC and season passes of the past. How did it all go so wrong? Can live service roadmaps be done right? Well, today, that's what we're going to be explaining. Welcome back to another industry report. Yes, this ostensibly is a Battlefield video, but it really is far more of an industry analysis one, with Battlefield being the vehicle through which we do that. And I'll also throw in a quick Firestorm review at the end because hey, why not? Battlefield 5 has had a troubled life. It released later than first announced because of the game essentially not really being finished, with EA attributing its low sales to a more competitive November release window and decreased revenue to those low sales being combined with a lower average sale price because of them having to compete with all the other games coming out in November by offering discounts. This was a rough position for the company and a rough position for customers who, on top of the waiting time, had to contend with an arbitrary early access period where Origin Access Premier subscribers got the game early, then Deluxe Edition players got it a bit earlier than launch, but not as early as the Origin Access people, and then regular purchasers got it on the official release day, weeks after the game was first playable. And with that happening, we were then further let down by there only being 8 maps on launch, with the post-launch Panzerstorm map initially being quite a letdown, requiring a significant rework in a 2019 game update. Through all of this, though, DICE have talked about their roadmap, positioning it as the game's eventual path to greatness and fullness. It's a pitch that we hear just about everywhere, yet in the case of games like Battlefield 5, Anthem, and Call of Duty Black Ops 4, we see that things are far more mixed. Anthem's roadmap seemingly delayed legendary missions just to have them be a post-launch event. Yet, there absolutely are something that the game would have benefited from at launch. Much of the same goes for Battlefield, but interestingly, less so for a game such as The Division 2, which seems to be a lot more content-rich at launch and with a far more thought-out roadmap. With the EA Games roadmaps, we then additionally need to keep Origin Access Premier in our minds. At the cost of $14.99 a month or $89.99 a year, it heavily incentivizes games that continually give users reasons to frequently play them. Since the introduction of this service, we have indeed seen EA Games adopt roadmaps and be quite well aligned to do that, but only in the most cost-efficient way possible. The more they can keep people along at $14.99 a month, the better, especially if it takes more than a month for a user to decide to upgrade to the yearly subscription, as the yearly one costs the same as 6 months at the $14.99 tier. Being a subscription, of course, it also means that if you come back to an EA title after a year or two, you gotta pony up another $14.99. So while it does seem like an upfront great deal, I actually think that it often will not turn out that way for all but the most diehard of EA Games fans. It is a smart business model for sure, especially in an era where companies are competing over users' attention and their capacity for platform membership, because just about everyone has a sub-service these days. Battlefield 1 and 5 give us a perfect comparison. Battlefield 1 launched with 9 maps on the 21st of October, with an additional one coming as a free update shortly after. Past that, they reverted to the traditional model. You had 4 DLC packs over 2 years, full of maps, weapons, and vehicles, with Battlefield 1 Premium acting as the game's season pass, and then premium members usually getting 2 weeks of early access to the map packs. So for these map packs, They Shall Not Pass released on the 29th of March, about 5 months after launch, and it added 6 new maps plus a bunch of new weapons and all that. Yes, it took quite some time to come out, but that's a lot of maps. In the Name of the Tsar launched on the 19th of September, 5.5 months after the previous one, bringing 6 maps. Then Turning Tides launched on the following 20th of February, bringing 4 maps, with it previously having launched that December for premium members. And then finally Apocalypse launched on the 6th of March 2018, bringing with it 5 maps. So overall, Battlefield 1 had 32 maps. That's a colossal amount of multiplayer content, and while there were some free events, most players who engaged fully in the map packs would have purchased Battlefield 1 Premium for $34.99, at least in the UK. So for us in the UK, you'd spend $34.99 plus about $45 for the game, total of 80 quid, you got 32 maps over 2 years. It was quite a bit of money, but in return you got a lot of content that was of a high level of quality. The downside, of course, is that the DLC packs would split up the player base, and that did cause problems for the game. It was not ideal. Now, when we compare that to Battlefield 5, things are strange. It released on the 20th of November last year, with an early access period having started on the 6th of November. It launched with only 8 maps, with a 9th coming in December. The game's 10th multiplayer map, only the 10th, releases during this coming May, 5 months after the release of the base game. Battlefield 5 will have met Battlefield 1 launch parity in terms of core game content 5 to 6 months after launch. Of course, by that time, 6 months on, Battlefield 1 had 16 maps. Yes, that did involve a DLC purchase, and that will be a big point later, but right now this is the most stretched out, cost-effective experience. And is that something that you actually want? Now, yes, Battlefield 5 did release Firestorm this month. I will talk about it more later on, and while it is welcome, it's rather secondary to the core Battlefield experience. I mean, it's not even fully supported with its own progression. It's just a small bolt-on to Battlefield 5, even though it would be far better off being a standalone experience with a more developed progression system, because really the core is there to make that work. But for the core BF players, that's not what they're there for. They're there for the core conquest mode. Now, when you look at the rest of the live service model of this game, yeah, it's rather revealing. Guns have been drip-fed to players on a weekly basis, with the live service having these weekly missions, which are just a selection of challenges to complete. Now, these seem to have been considered content by DICE, but I think player sentiment towards the game really does show us that that is not the case. Additionally, game modes have been a part of this roadmap, and yes, they come, they're fun for a while, but then they're removed. Removing game modes from a game that is already content-starved really does seem like quite a poor move indeed. You see, from my personal experience, this live service has made me less likely to play the game. If I want to play Battlefield, I want to play Battlefield. I just want to sit down and do it. I don't want to have to deal with a bunch of arbitrary systems that are intended to string out the experience over many weeks. Gun unlocks used to be unlocked all with the new wave of DLC. Now, this unlock process for all the guns is available at the same time, and that for me would mean that I would spend a week or two making my way through all the new guns, unlocking them, while I was enjoying the new maps. It was all at once, and it was great. By splitting it apart and stringing it out, in my view, they've made it far less than the sum of its parts. For me, this is basically the analogy. Instead of just trying to sell you a cake, they are instead mailing you small packets of flour on a weekly basis, and then asking you to bake the cake yourself. Now, look, as a grand plan to consistently keep game players engaged, I understand why they thought this was a good idea. I'm not saying it's a big evil thing, right? Before it launched, many of us praised it. However, now that it's here, I don't think it has worked out as well as they thought. Indeed, I think it has replaced one fiscal barrier to entry with a more mental one, I guess. Of course, if the goal is to keep people getting a month or two of Origin Access Premiere here or there across the year to check out the various live service contents of the various EA games, then yeah, this could probably help EA sell a few more months of that per year, making this business model in combination with Anthem's roadmap a success. Yes, I do believe that it's not a good player experience, even though it is cheaper for people who outright own the game. Personally, I would rather just pay the full cost of entry and get the ideal experience. All the new maps, all the new guns, all in their proper DLC waves, all just so I can have, maybe 6 times a year, a good Battlefield experience when I decide I want to get back into the game really properly for a few weeks. But by having everything be strung out, I really think that is lost, and while it is cheaper, it has reduced my enjoyment of a Battlefield game, even though I do believe that Battlefield 5 is clearly the mechanically superior game, with excellent recoil-based shooting, a lot more causality and decision-making being involved, better balanced revives, and a bunch else. Additionally, we've actually seen quite a reduced quantity of content. By the time Battlefield 5 hits 10 maps, Battlefield 1 had 16. Assuming the same rate of maps, even being generous, 2019 could close out with there being 13 multiplayer maps for Battlefield 5, by which time BF1 had 22 maps. For people who just want the core Battlefield experience across a large, diverse number of maps, I think it undoubtedly is a worse experience, regardless of the reduced price and stronger game design. So that's my question to you. Do you want a cheaper experience with more strung out content over time that I guess is more efficient per dollar spent, or do you just want a more premium experience with more content? For me, Battlefield 5, yeah, it has the higher time per dollar value, but I think Battlefield 1 had the higher fun per dollar value, and at the end of the day, I've only got so much time in my life, and I'd rather prioritize the higher fun per dollar. So yeah, I do think Battlefield 1 ended up being a better experience in spite of its issues. Now, it is fair to say that Firestorm is a significant addition to the game, being 10x the size of its very large Hamada map. And that's fine, but the core Battlefield audience is there for the core reasons they've been at Battlefield for years. You know, perhaps DICE just overestimated the value they would see in Firestorm. And it is just hard to know how much Firestorm took away from core content development, as it was primarily handled by Criterion, another team. But with that, how is Firestorm? Well, I would say it's really fun, but kind of disposable. I think that's sad for the people who made it. You know, somewhere along the chain of command, the decision was made not to break this out into its own standalone release. And that's a bit of a problem. So I think the core of greatness is there. I mean, first, it's gorgeous. It's truly stunning in scale. It's one of the most immersive battle royales out there. It's really helped by the extremely strong audio design that DICE is known for. The Battlefield gunplay also translates over really well. It actually works great with the increased health pools, and interestingly, I found the Battlefield 5's more difficult recoil pattern-based shooting, combined with the increased time to kill of Battle Royale, actually creates longer firefights where more skilled players have a higher chance of victory. And that has kind of meant that as an experienced Battlefield player, I've found getting to the top, or the top 5 has just been a walk in the park. Now that could color my experience, but overall, I think it's a good thing. Battlefield shooting, I think, has always worked fantastically with bullet fall-off, given how DICE were very, very early to doing that with their game. So that's another aspect that translates over to the format super well. I mean, moving on, the destruction of Battlefield works great here. It makes buildings really quite interesting and risky as a part of gameplay. The built-up areas are also really well designed, and in general, it's a great Battle Royale map, especially in how the actual Firestorm spawns in at a different place every time, meaning that you get a different slice of the map every time you hop into a mode. They then also have various objectives spread across it, which can further spice things up, increasing the replayability of the map. And the same goes for vehicles, they're supported here, and surprisingly to me, they're actually quite well balanced, though definitely more for the team play. And I haven't actually got to play it with squads of my friends yet, but I do think it'll be a better experience there based on my experience with the base game, but even solo, I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Loot-wise though, things are a bit weaker. The UI is kind of terrible, picking up items is just really annoying. They should just follow the Apex model and have enemies drop a chest that comes with a simple loot menu. The way attachments and quality of weapons work isn't that great either. But one thing that is actually excellently done is the titular Firestorm. I mean, it's visually stunning. It's far better than the random energy fields of other games. Seeing it engulf buildings is just such a treat. It's so damn cool. And I love the changes to gameplay caused in the last ring, where your whole world is dominated by the Firestorm, and it's really cool. The sound design makes it feel super scary as well. So to round it up in this sort of quick review, I think it's a really fun mode. I just wish it had a standalone release with its own progression system and more room for further support. It does not benefit from being attached to Battlefield 5, and Battlefield 5 barely benefits from its attachment, in my view. Done right, this could be a super successful Battle Royale game that could perform well for EA, giving them two completely different Battle Royale games of different gameplay styles in their portfolio, which would allow them to draw in really a large audience for both. As it stands though, it's not well supported enough to be worth buying Battlefield 5 for, and it doesn't help alleviate the problems of Battlefield 5. Simply put, assumptions were made that did not turn out to be in line with reality. And I think that is something that Battlefield enthusiasts probably could have told them months ago. So there you go. Live services are a mixed bag. This is them done wrong. And then of course a new Battle Royale mode that, hey, it's fantastic, but it's not that well placed. Ultimately, if they want to salvage this game, they need more maps, they need them to come out far faster, they should be releasing waves of at least 3 maps, probably 3 times a year, 4 times a year. That's what they need to do if they want to get this game in a good state. Just one has to wonder, is the damage done? And then, hey, Firestorm, it's great, but come on guys, give us a standalone release. You'll make more money. I know that's what you want, so, it's a win-win, right? How about you do that? Anyway, there we go. That is my thoughts on roadmaps and the Battlefield 5 situation. As a lifelong Battlefield fan, I played Battlefield 2 when I was like 12, I think, in a LAN. So this series means a lot to me personally, and I guess it's just kind of sad to see one step forward, two steps back with this particular entry to the franchise. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you very much for watching this video. Be sure to check out the other video on the channel today, in which we go through the valley of darkness talking about microtransactions. I mean, hey, it's so absurd. I actually think you'll have a lot of fun watching it. So check that out. And with that, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.